I love watching players allowed to take PAX and send out the Sorcery Championship at Gen Con. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter.
Hello and welcome to the Forgeborn Finishing School. Casey, Kid, and Core here. We'll be analyzing Forgeborn battles to help take your game to the next level. Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode. We're going to break down some of the PAX Ultimate Championship PAX storyline event today. Greg is joining me as per the usual. Greg, how are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Looking over some of these PAX decks. Looks like another fun event. So
yeah, so I got it pulled up here. It happened this last weekend and down in Philadelphia, and we had a total of 6 players. So we show 8 here. We had 2 drops throughout, and so looking at our placings, we ended up with the world champ Sam Nathanson taking first place, and then followed up by Alex Walden, Carl Testa, Brandon Bowles, all pretty common names we see in the online community doing well in these tournaments. It was nice to see one new name, Jason Bailey, and then Matt from the 5th Cycle from Canada made it down. Hope he had a great time at PAX. That's one of the ones we've talked about, always wanted to get out to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the radar there. So congrats to Sam Nathanson for another victory there.
Yeah, so just take a quick look at his winning deck, and if you look at this, it looks, I would say, very similar to his archetype that won Worlds. You have a Krogius, Mantis, Forge Seal deck, paired into that really nice Cersei that's Death Touch, Life Drain, Army Commander 4. This is what we like to call the Theory Special. If you're around for the early days of Solforge Fusion, patented this deck style. And Sam is trying to take that archetype by force, I think, and it's probably his now at this point, winning Worlds and then an Ultimate Championship with the archetype. So there's a lot of other great cards in here. Greg, you want to break just a couple of those nice little combos down?
Yeah, it's just a really solid deck. Ness is really good at picking out good half-deck combinations and then playing them exceptionally well. What I really find striking or really good in this deck, and I don't know how much it went into this, but with the combination of Commanding Slime, Shambling Walker, and then that leads into his spell list with you have Cersei's Call, Minion Generation, Zombies, Group Meal, Zombie Generation, Infernal Ritual, Best Zombie Generation, and X-Wrath Will, more Zombie Generation. So, it's easy. This deck is easily able to ramp up wide and big, as well as surprise hit with the Infernal Ritual. So, I wouldn't be surprised if even on the AC4-2, if you didn't have Krogus' advantage, you could have just popped an Infernal Ritual at the right time, or a Commanding Slime at the right time to just, if you already had a bunch of zombies on the board, pops his Infernal Ritual, gets a level 3 Commanding Slime on there, and that's hard to deal with. So that's just another avenue. So again, we've talked about it before. You're looking at multiple win conditions, multiple ways of controlling the board, and one of the best ways of controlling the board is just a lot of big bodies that you're able to put out with fewer actions. So that's one of the things that stood out for me in this deck.
Yeah, I think that's the key to taking a really solid deck that's just going to win your average tournament up to the next level and be able to regularly win, or win competitive level events. And that, just like you said, having an entire all win condition that also plays along well with your original win condition. So if you fall off that play line, you have one in the back, or if you're on both play lines, you could send them both, and that's what Forge Seal Mantis really allows you to do with Army Commanders. Just send it all. So congratulations to the world champ for taking it down. I'm very excited to hear what his next card is going to be. We've heard back at Gen Con, Greg and I heard a little bit of inklings of what he was going to do with his first card, and I'm very excited for that. So we'll see with this one. Let's shuffle right over to the PAX Unplugged storyline event. So we did have 32 registered players, which we were both very excited about when we saw that last week. However, it did end up whittling down to 14 players that ended up actually making the play. Perhaps some of the drop players actually played, in these conventions. I know there's a lot of confusion, a lot of things going on. So there's a potential that some of the drop players played. I'm not 100% certain on that, but yeah, you can see. Okay, I am now. You can see a couple of them played a couple rounds at least, up to 19 at least played two
Okay.
rounds, but whittled down pretty quick to 14. So not too bad. 19 players started the event. And we ended up with 5 players going 4-1, which is kind of really cool to see a joint hoisting of the trophy. We saw a similar thing at Gen Con storyline event, which is 2 players at the top, yourself and Steven Hellkite.
Yeah,
And
we have.
then, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we have some of the decks were registered for it. Obviously, since it was a sealed tournament, it probably wasn't as strict on the getting those put in there and storyline. But I think we wanted to go over one of the decks.
Yep, this is the deck that Church from the Charge Plated podcast piloted. It was one of the ones that was registered, and it is Onyxium, which was really awesome to see. And this has just a lot of fun cards kind of hiding in it. Cerazal the Deceiver, ever since Cardboard Newt played this at Worlds, I've kind of had my eye on this card. It's just something to keep an eye on. I'd maybe start to call it a poor man's Rumble Spark. It's not quite on the same level, but it is really entertaining how it plays. And so once you get Cerazal up to level 2, if you deal damage to the enemy player with another creature, you get to transform that Knight aspect. And that's when it turns into the 10-8 with stealth that can really push some damage through. And it can happen fairly early in a game, so you could conceivably turn 1 of cycle 2 get this level 3 creature out on the board. But really, I think what I found most interesting was that this was, I'm going to assume he's running Crux Cobalt. His Cersei wasn't terrible, but I don't think was quite as nicely tuned as the Crux is here. Synaptic Solution, reducing a creature's attack and giving creatures more attack is really nice. But that precog at level 3, that's kind of one of the ones we've all, when set 2 came out, we drooled over a little bit, was precognition at cycle 3. The enemy player gets to play a level 1 card for free, then you get to play any card for free.
Any card, yeah.
And this is perfect because sometimes, especially in Alolan, when you're leveling up a bunch of cards, you end up with a handful of gold, right? And your opponent doesn't want to see you playing 3-4 gold cards when they just, get a pop out of level 1. Overall, feelings of the deck, honestly, I feel like this is really indicative of sealed. You have a very solid blue Alolan half, and you have a pretty solid purple Necrium half. I'm just not really certain that they mesh all that well together, but that's okay in sealed. Sometimes you can get away with that, so that's kind of a good point to take, is if you got just really solid value cards in a deck, you can just run those in sealed, and that's going to work pretty well for you. He's got things like stabilizing. We know that's powerful. Palladium Simulacrum on its own, if left unattended, can actually cause issues. And then it's got the best card in Solforge Fusion Greg in this deck, and Digitize. So I don't know how you could lose. I'll let you break down the Necrium, but I'll leave it at it's also got some nice removal in the Alolan half alone, which Redact and Tech Upgrade can kind of do some removal. So I'll pass it over to you for the Necrium half.
Yeah, before I get into the Necrium half, I'll dive just a little bit into the blue. I think it's got some very good utility in the blue. Like I said, removal, the Redact, Energy Prison, kind of controlling, Tech Upgrade you mentioned, stabilizing you mentioned, right? I think also in Salvage, he threw also the Salvage there when it dies, kind of helps control or mitigate. And then I think Soltar Forge Master is a little bit better in sealed than constructed, because a lot of times an enemy just may not even have an answer to him for a while, so he could become a problem. But going into the purple there, Light Skull Bomb, I like that card. I don't know if he's got a lot of spirits to take advantage of it, but it's still just kind of removal in that sense. And then Runescarred Pit is solid, again, controlling big guys, big bodies. You can be able to fill up a board, so it helps you mitigate that. And then Keeper of the Damned could be interesting. He ends up getting kind of big. You can use them to mitigate creatures that are being about to die. So helps again, kind of keeping your lanes filled if you need to, or your bolt control a little bit better. He gets better as the game goes on. I think there's just a lot of just decent statted cards in here. Combat Demon 7/7 off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
huge. Um,
One thing I really like about that Keeper of the Damned in this deck as well, Greg, is that it plays off 3 other cards that are in this deck alone, providing that destruction synergy.
yeah, Spite
In the
Hydra.
Brood Fang, the Poltergeist, and the Spite Hydra. So that could be a nice little nucleus to get going in a deck.
So it seems kind of like the deck seems a little bit all over the place, but like you mentioned, there are like these things that kind of map together, and having that in sealed a lot of times is pretty good, as well as just having some options for bigger bodies that are going to be harder to deal with. And I think this deck pulls that off.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that Demon. I cycle 1 play every time in sealed. I'm dropping a 7/7.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. So, before this, we were kind of talking about, competitive events in Solforge Fusion and just kind of the mindset. And, it reminded me, I've been on and off again fan of Team Covenant. I got into watching some of their stuff back in my X-Wing days, and I've just really enjoyed their philosophy almost more than anything else. Like, that's what continues to bring me back to Team Covenant content, or their store, or just really their community. So I did see a clip recently that I do want to share with the group, and we can kind of just talk about it here for a second, Greg. So let's play this.
I loved watching players allow takebacks at center at the Sorcery Championship at Gen Con. Yeah. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. Like, it does matter, but what matters way more is that you're allowing the take back than you winning that game. Yeah. It's just an amazing thing how that can be the case.
And so, like, they're talking about a different game, Sorcery TCG, but there's a lot of correlations with Solforge Fusion, right? When your opponent's playing, you don't have a lot of interaction back with your opponent. They get to do their turn, and there's, of course, some things that they have in play that if it affects them on their turn, it's just kind of a if this, then that statement, more or less, right? There's no instant speed interactions or anything of that nature. So they're talking about takebacks, and this is something that I absolutely loved about Solforge Fusion from the beginning, is that not just for myself, but my opponent, I could give them the peace of mind to just say, hey, in your turn, it's your turn. You can do whatever you want, because some people's minds just kind of map plays differently. They're more visual. They want to put cards down and rearrange them. And, in this game, who am I to say you can't do that, honestly, especially because, believe it or not, I've had people put 2 cards from their hand down on the board and move them around and talk through them. And it's like, hey, you're giving me free information, but if that's helping you, then okay, that's fine. And I've just always approached this game that way. With what he said right off the bat is that it's more important that you allow the player to take the thing back than it is that you win the game. Now, I'm not going to say that that's from a wholesale standpoint on every single time, but I believe that statement to be true the vast majority of the time. Because what we're trying to do, and we have been doing, I think this whole community is building up a community of mutual respect, and really just friendly players. And so that's a tenet that I try to live by when I go to a tournament, is that if you ask me to take something back, 99.9% of the time, you didn't even have to ask me, right? Like, it's just an expectation from me that you can go ahead and do that, as long as it didn't drastically interact with me. We can kind of go into some of the rules here in a little bit, but what are your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I agree with it. And I like it. I mean, just because something's competitive doesn't mean it needs to be like, I don't know, but when I think about it, like, if I'm going to a competitive tournament, I want to play against like the best of the best. And if that is for somebody to take their time and being like, does this do this? And then it comes to click and go, oh no, this is the better play, even though they've already played it. Like, I'm just getting a more, it's just a more competitive game at that point than letting somebody make a mistake. And then once it passes over to me, that's another thing. That's kind of something I've always tried to do as well in Solforge, because yes, I play a card, you play a card, but that's not really the case. When you get into the big power decks, like, my main deck, I could play 2 cards the whole turn, or I could just dump my entire hand in 1/2 phase if you have the right cards. And so, one of the good things to get into, and again, and then if I'm playing against somebody, I kind of assume that they're going to be doing the same thing. So it's just like, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do over here. I'm not impacting you. I mean, I am impacting you, but like, one of the habits that I kind of got into is like, I would do all my things and be like, all right, your go, sir. Or before I would start doing anything, be like, are you good? Because at that point they still have the opportunity that they want to go, actually I thought about it. That's not a good play. This is a better play. Like, okay, and then I'll go, right? So like, you got to get that communication back and forth. You're talking about it. So again, I don't have a problem with it. I am kind of sometimes a visual person. Like, I'll play something, I'll be like, I'll think it through, and I'll be like, no. So I think, there's even times you've seen me on camera, probably even game against you, where I play something down, and I'm like, why did I do that? That doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
switch that back. And other people have done it when I play against people. So.
Well, it's good that you bring that up. Like, I can think back to Denver at the very last play between us. You were saying you were doing something, and my head did, like, this wasn't on camera, but I was like, and I think but as you had the card down, like you said, you had the card down, and you're like, wait a second, that's not the right, and then you redo it, and it's like, okay, that's the game, it's over now. And it goes right back to the other thing you said, is that, like, in a competitive event, you want to have the most competitive outcome, right? Or and so if someone just kind of has a slip up, you would hate for them to go out on that, and just put yourself in that same shoe. Like, do you really want, like, whatever you did before the 35 other plays to be played by one? Maybe, if that's what we want competitive Solforge to be, but I don't think we're at that level, and I think this community is so great that the game enables us to have this ability to allow the takebacks.
Yeah, and there's some cases where it may not be like, let's say you play a Blight Skull Bomb, right? And I go, because you're gonna say you get a sacrifice. Like, okay, I'm gonna target this one. Like, now I've given you information. And in most cases, it's probably not gonna matter again. At a high level, you're like, you knew I was gonna select that card anyways. So.
Yeah, I'm picking Krogius.
Yeah, you're like, I'm just gonna pick Krogius, and you'd be like, can I take that back? And be like, yeah, that was really bad.
No, that's absolutely a great point. And that does bring me to, like, kind of the rules. We talked a little bit about that, right? So in the OP rules for Solforge Fusion, really the only delineating statement about your turn is that you will specify when your action phase has ended, right? So we all take the colloquialisms of pass, your turn, I'm done, but you say your action phase is complete. It doesn't say that when a creature hits a lane, that's where it's stuck. You know what I mean? So that's either something, A, where the OP rules need to be adjusted, or B, we should all live within the rules as they are, and be respectful of each other. If you put something in a lane, and then even 3 minutes later, you're still thinking about your turn, you're looking through your cards, you're like, oh, I want to move that over to this lane. Yeah, I mean, you didn't say pass. Your turn's not done. Feel free to move that around, by all means. And that's kind of what, like I said, I love about this game. And I did want to bring one other thing up, and this isn't to throw anything at the Solforge Fusion rule book, but honestly, I love it. And when I was looking through for this game, doing a little research on the website, our organized play rules, these are the consequences and what will happen for unsporting contact. Insert text here, Greg, because we've had a year's worth of events, and we have never had a scenario, a situation where this would be a problem, right? And so I do think we're getting a lot of new players from this Kickstarter coming into the community, which is absolutely amazing. And that's why I kind of just wanted to talk about this, to let them know the community they're coming into, and that they will be welcomed with arms wide open. And we're super excited to have them. And this is kind of the expectations that they can have from all of us, right? All of us that play this game, that show up at these events, they don't even have to have rules against us, because, if you play a card, just, hey, go ahead, take it back. Shout out to Eli at the Storyline event when I was playing him. I think I moved around my Utera Charger 47 times in one turn because we couldn't figure out the most optimal path for it to kill the amount of things that it could.
How many things can this kill?
Yeah. He and I gameplay in one turn for 20 minutes. And that's the kind of community that we have here. So it's awesome. Any other thoughts on that, Greg?
No, I really like their take. Like I said, and it is pretty amazing. Like you're right. We've had world championships. I mean, have you ever seen a TCG World Championship where there wasn't some kind of like it was smooth. I mean, I didn't play in it, but we watched it. We talked to people about it. The storyline event was huge. All of the UCs the two UCs we've been in and the other minor tournaments, the online tournaments, never a concern, never an issue. Everybody's been great, and like I said, let's keep that same mentality and familiarity with the new people that this game's going to bring in, hopefully through the Kickstarter. So,
absolutely. And last thing that I just need to throw out there is a plug for Team Covenant for letting us use their clip. If you haven't watched any of their content and want to see, just a couple of people hang out and talk about their favorite board games and somehow delve into the philosophical nature of board game and life, and it's just great to listen to, hear their conversations, and they have a Discord that's a great community also to be a part of. So I will have some of their links in the descriptions below for this video. But I think that wraps up everything we have here today, Greg.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for attending this lesson of the Forgeborn Finishing School. If you like this video, please subscribe, comment, or consider donating to our Patreon account. We look forward to our next lesson.